Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Once again, we survived the week, and the weekend is yet to come, but we have This Week in Watches. I'm here with my friend Josh Thanos.
Hey Tim.
Josh is here with his opinions, views, and insights as ever. Guys, the week in watches is better summed up as the last 24 hours in watches. We've had some blockbusters. There's a Breitling Sale, there's Swiss FHS industry statistics, and I must say, the most optimistic that I've seen in 20 months. But before we do that, first thing, Federico is talking watches live in our chat box, so join in if you have the chat box functionality in your browser. Second, I have a new channel, Watch You Want Watch Reviews, where you can see my old style talking hands, and I'm saving the best for this channel. I've got some great stuff. I've got about 60 videos now backlogged, and they're going live at a rate of 3 per day. Finally, I've got a this or that for Josh, and he's going to take it away. Josh, here's your option. Maximum finish or maximum complication for the money. Vacheron Constantin, Quaidalil, automatic and steel, 14,900. Awesome Geneva Hallmark caliber, now available with the blue dial, or Zenith Pilot Double Matic for 14,500 steel. You're talking about an Alarm World Time chronograph versus a Geneva Hallmark automatic with date.
So this is a tough one, right? Because whenever I think of this or that, no matter whatever parameters you set for me, I'm always going to have my own, which is, okay, what's going to hold more value? Because we're talking about a retail purchase here. But the good news is they roughly hold the same amount of value in regards to resale. Okay. You know, maybe the Quaidalil is going to be a little bit more just because it's a newer version. There aren't as many out there. But so I can kind of take that off the table. So now we're talking about my personal opinion. What I would, and if my money was going to be spent here, this is really tough. Vacheron, really like the brand. The Quaidalil is a really, really cool watch. We talked about it. It looks more complicated than it is. Yeah. So that's something also. So if you look at the watch, you put it on your wrist, it's nice, finish is amazing, and it does. It looks more complicated than it is. The Double-Matic, though, I mean, I'm a sucker for alarms.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so, I mean, we talked about this before. So, with the alarm, the chronograph, it's got the high beat movement, grand date, right? Large date on the
double-digit date and a quick set.
Okay, so I'll say the Zenith.
Cool. Okay, Josh made the bold choice. Now, of course, the Quaidalil in steel is something that came out last year. There's a blue dial version that Vacheron's teased on its Instagram. Really cool watch. Like Josh said, it's a very technical-looking thing. Yeah. It's the polar opposite of like this. I've got a Patrimony right here, and this is a big, broad, and thin manual wind dress watch. The Quaidalil is almost a sports watch in its aesthetic.
Yes, exactly.
But you're getting a beautiful watch and a finely finished watch, but to use the expression Swiss Army watch in the terms that you would describe a Swiss Army knife. Right. That's what the Double-Matic is.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's big, it's bulky, it's going to be something that people are going to notice on your wrist, so that has to be going into play as well. I tend to like a little bit more subdued watches, but I'm a sucker for complication. Yeah. So, and especially if you can jam all that into a watch at some sort of affordable price or something that it feels like you're getting more than what you're paying for.
Yes.
That always brings like a joy to my heart whenever I'm thinking about buying a watch. So both watches really cool. I'd be super torn. I mean, just both is the answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, both is always the right answer when you're playing this or that. Yeah. And now the nice thing about the Quaidalil in steel is that you're actually getting the post-2012 version of the Geneva Hallmark, which means it's a Geneva seal that applies to the entirety of the cased-up watch, not just the movement.
Right.
And that's great.
So, yeah, I mean, highly finished watch. Again, like I always come back to, it comes down to what else do you have in your collection. If you don't have anything at all, I'd say go for the Double-Matic. You know, that's because you put it on a leather strap. It's going to be a dress watch, even though it's nice and bulky. It probably won't fit under a cuff, but it's a Zenith, so you can pull it off, sort of. The Quaidalil is kind of a very specific watch. You're not wearing that to the beach.
No, that's true. 3 ATM water resistance. The Zenith is actually more water resistant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Zenith is everything. It's an alarm. It's a chronograph. It's a complication with automatic winding, a robust 50-hour power reserve. It's El Primero tough. It's got the history of the El Primero. And I'll say this. It's on a folding buckle with a gator strap, so you get a little bit more value there than you do with the Quaidalil on a pin buckle.
Yeah, but you can get a rubber strap for that watch, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, get a rubber strap and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, we're in accord. So, guys, let's do a wrist check here. Josh, show me what you got.
All right. Well, I'll show it to you, and then I'll show it to the camera. How's that?
Should I-
So you see what that is right here. You want to do a talking hands real quick?
I'm going to
Go for
hand
it, man.
model this. We're going to do a mini version right here.
right,
This
talking hands.
is Josh's Breitling Aerospace. Now, you guys know I love the Aerospace. Thermocompensated super quartz, very, very precise, but also 100-meter water resistant. It's got an electronic minute repeater, which I love. It's got a backlight, it's got dual time, it's got a countdown timer, it's got an alarm, it's got a chronograph, speaks multiple languages with a perpetual calendar. And here's the thing, guys. We see Aerospace is coming back from the mid-'80s for service in our service department, and those things are still running fine. They are watchmaker built, they are watchmaker serviced, and they are lifetime watches. I will never, ever say a bad word about those things because, frankly, they're the best value in pre-owned watches going today, bar none.
Without a doubt. And I mean, I think this one's early 2000s too. So this is the second generation. And like right now, the current generation is going to be a little larger, a little bit more robust. And this watch, in my opinion, looks a little outdated on either the leather strap or like that bullet bracelet.
Yeah.
You put it on the the rubber strap with the double clasp, and it looks like a modern version.
Yeah, he actually put it on, I think, the Pro 3 strap,
3, sure.
and he put it with the, you have the sliding adjuster in that clasp?
It's the best thing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
guys,
so you
by
buy
the
this
way.
thing pre-owned, you go out and you get the strap and the clasp, and for less than the price of buying it new, yeah, I mean, this is very cool.
Ratchets. It's awesome. My wrists swell, especially in the South Florida heat and coming inside. My wrist swells and shrinks all day long, and it's fantastic.
We got a little bit more on Breitling in just a second. I'm going to show you my lovely little 37 millimeter. Let me see if I can get the focus here.
Focus.
My lovely little 37 millimeter Master Moon stainless steel black dial. They made these in the early 2000s, late 1990s. You got a basic JLC 889 caliber inside, and it's a lovely little thing. Beautiful for my wrist size and one of my favorites. Also one of the watches that gets among the most wrist time in my collection. So Josh, okay, FHS statistics. The FHS, Federation Horlogère Statistics. They come out every month and they basically describe how the watch market is doing from the perspective of Swiss exports. They do value and they do volume. 20 consecutive months leading up to this one, we have seen declines in value. And this is disastrous because although globally the economy is kind of middling, for the sake of the watch industry from that perspective, right now is almost what 2008 and 2009 were to the rest of the world at large. It's a crisis. Therefore, it's kind of shocking that we have our first sales growth in Swiss exports in 20 months.
Okay, a little bump.
Josh, are you seeing any of this on the pre-owned side? Are you hearing
Not
anything?
yet. I mean, it's always going to be like lagging indicator for us, right? So it happens first at the retail, then on the resale, but an adjustment from a lot of what the brands are doing, and they're realizing that value is important.
Okay.
You know, they're not just selling things that have a limitless value. You know, people are looking at this, and it's a very competitive market. The business of watches is really important. Most of the brands are not very good at that. You know, we got Rolex, we got Patek, maybe Journe, and then it's a sliding scale from there, right? We always talk about that. So the fact that other brands are taking note and doing things in order to show and bring more value, that might be what we're looking at here. We don't know.
We've seen a little bit of everything. We've seen prices cut. We've seen inventory buybacks. We've seen the debut of simpler and steel watches and lower priced watches. But whatever is going on, it's working. Now, there were some mitigating factors. For one thing, relative to 2016, this is year-over-year sales, which means that we're comparing this month, March 2017 to March of 16. March of 16 was a disaster. Also, there were 2 more sales days this past March. So for the sake of the Swiss watch industry's exports, I'm not going to say all things are equal because they're not. Here's the thing, price range winners. Clearly, the biggest winner was the 200 to 500 Swiss franc watch, but the 3,000 plus was also very robust. 3,000 francs plus, we saw an increase of 10.7%. So that's pretty robust for a single month.
Hell yeah.
Double digits is always significant. Now, Josh, let me ask you. The favored material was steel, up 5.4%, about 2 and change for precious metals, and then other metals gaining 1.1. In this market, even in this market where we saw a slight uptick in everything else, two-tone continued to decline. So two-tone's out of the party. Is this a durable trend?
I would hope so. I mean, that's good for everyone. You know, more sales funnels more watches into the pre-owned sector. So selfishly, I would hope so. I think that, it's just like anything. When you're looking at sales, it's peaks and valleys. So there's always going to be ups and there's always going to be downs. We want to see over a long term. If we see, either a straight line or a pitch line upwards, that's kind of what we're looking for. So I'll say, let's have some reserve judgment. Let's be happy that it's not continuing to go down.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is something that, listen, we know it's not going to just keep shooting straight up, or it's not going to shoot straight up. But if we can get, more of an even rate, I think we'd be happy.
Yeah, and I think what Josh is saying with respect to an even rate is that we find a rhythm where the market and production more or less equalize. So part of this is going to be feeling out by the industry itself. Part of this is going to be, just the market consuming the surplus of watches that have been created. Hopefully the manufacturers slowing production a bit will give consumers time to catch up, and we can sort of zero things out. And then I think, like you say, Josh, we'll find out if this growth is for real or if it's just, first time in 20 months. So you got to pay attention to it, whether it's isolated or a trend.
Absolutely.
Okay, so also important, Josh, could you tell us a little bit about what the major markets were, because the Far East led.
In regards to the major markets,
China and Hong Kong,
right.
Just mainland China, what's up there? Because it was runaway. It was over 30%.
Yeah, that's huge. So what we're seeing probably is what we've talked about in the past in regards to loosening up, or people figuring out how to get around the gifting laws and things like that, right? So President Xi, he put together he put forth a referendum and a directive to get rid of a lot of the corruption.
Yeah. And this is a multi-year process.
Of course.
At first, it was very destructive to watch sales.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the majority of the watch sales in mainland China are that, and it's such a humongous market, billions of people. So I think we're seeing people being able to navigate these laws, and so people are starting to buy again. And that's fantastic for us. So whether it be for us, in the pre-owned sector, in the new sector, I know we have a new location in Hong Kong too, so that's great to hear for us.
So also impressive, Hong Kong, which had been depressingly down, is up, I want to say 18+%.
That's right.
And the U.S., very strong, 15+ in terms of growth, 15 percentage points in the U.S. and 15 in the U.K. as Brexit begins to recede as a fear. I believe there's going to be a vote in June. Theresa May is looking to have a parliamentary vote to basically staunch and bolster her position politically heading towards the Brexit negotiations later in the year. And I feel like there's a lot of confidence that she's going to get the validation she wanted, and Brexit is no longer considered a short-term worry factor for luxury buyers. Okay, so jumping forward, Josh, let me ask you about the Breitling sale, because we've got a situation now where Breitling has been for sale for a while. It broke toward the end of last year that a sale was being explored.
For years, right?
Yeah, realistically,
it's been whispered for years, right?
It's the kind of thing that's hard to believe because it's been in the same family since 1979.
Oh, yeah.
And also because the merger mania and the acquisition madness had begun to recede. It was a phenomenon of the late 90s and the 2000s. So this is going to be one of the larger watchmakers to be acquired in a long time, and to be perfectly honest, we've got some standards of reference that we'll bring in later, but they got bought by CVC Capital Partners, a 36-year-old Netherlands-based private equity company. So we had said, you and I had both said, that it made most sense for someone outside the watch space. Swatch has enough brands. Rolex only needs 2, and Richemont and LVMH are flush.
Yeah.
So CVC, what do they own? Okay, so this is who bought them.
Okay.
They own lottery interests in Malaysia. They own betting in the UK, betting interests. They are in fast food in Korea. They are in Petco and Leslie's Pool Supplies in the United States. The bottom line is bringing in a luxury watch. This is literally the definition of drifting capital. Right. This is not a luxury player genetically. This is just money looking for an opportunity. Yeah, and I think it's not a bad idea. Having a fresh look at the brand and the industry might be good for everyone because number one, they're gonna take note, right? There is a little bit of complacency I think we see in this industry, probably has been for a long time. Sure. Right. So when you have someone like this who they're not ingrained in there. There's no baggage that they're coming in with. I can see it as a good thing, especially for a brand like this that's an independent that really doesn't operate as an independent, right? It operates like one of the large
operators because they do so much volume.
Yeah, Breitling, interesting things that came out of basically just the news of this acquisition. First, how's this for like the difference between the real economy and the world of like equity and wandering capital? Breitling has 900 employees in Grenchen.
Right.
And this company, CVC, International, with 24 international branches, has a total of 400 employees. That's the difference between directing 52 million or billion, excuse me. This isn't like Dr. Evil anymore. We mean billion. 52 billion in global assets and 400 employees versus Breitling. We understand they did something like 420 million Swiss francs of business in 2016, and they have 900 employees.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that number will be have to go down.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the nature of private equity.
Yep.
They're slash and burn, and they're impatient.
Yeah.
But like Josh said, they have no dogmas. I'm going to quote you something that the managing director of the company said.
Okay.
And this jives perfectly with what you said about them having no preconceived notions about what it means to own a Swiss watchmaker.
Sure.
This is, okay, here's the quote. Specifically, we see significant growth potential for Breitling, both in existing and new geographies, by digitizing the marketing and revamping distribution channels in the company, helping to enrich the product and customer experience. This is from Daniel Pindur. Okay, you're Daniel Pindur, and you have a blank check to promote and possibly sell Breitlings digitally. Right. Do you do that, Josh? What do you do to turn the company around? Give me your prescription for fixing Breitling.
Well, I'm so happy that, because we talk about this all the time, and what do we always say about in regards to watch brands holding value, right? We're talking about the secondary market, but really saying, as a brand, because it's brand equity, right?
Right.
Marketing and distribution, and those are the first two things that he's exclaiming out the gate. Like, hey, listen, we're going to go ahead and go after marketing and distribution. Well, digital marketing is important. If you look at simply just go to brand websites.
Yes.
They're like the hardest thing to navigate.
Oh my God, they're like Web 1.0. I feel like I'm going to see like a GeoCities banner pop up.
I mean, it's bad. Some of them have music that you can't turn off. Yeah, no, it's not good. I'm not going to name the brand today. I was trying to find a certain model, a very, very small boutique brand with a big name, and it was the most infuriating thing ever. I had to go to Joma Shop to find the model. So yes, bringing those up into the 2017, and not saying that we have the best web platform either. So we'll go ahead and
it looks
have some
good.
humility.
It's a little bit slow, we admit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's okay, but bringing their marketing to 2017, which is really important. Seeing, I guarantee you, we're going to see a lot of social media, a lot of optimizing web traffic, and
Shifting
getting people
from magazines to digital is a big one too.
Well, magazines are dead, right? So that's exactly what it's going to be. And what I see is, like, what a lot of the retailers are doing, are starting to look to sell online. For sure, Breitling's going to do that.
I mean, that's exactly what the gentleman is talking about, and that's what Josh is suggesting. Be willing to advertise online and sell online, because that is the future. And I talk about magazines, and everyone's like, who advertises in magazines? You would be amazed at the Swiss watch industry's dogmatic obsession with magazine ads. It's like they run around at corporate headquarters with these things pinned to their forehead. Look what we did! We were, I'm not going to name any magazines because I love them. I still read them. But the bottom line is, I'm the ultimate watch nerd, and I'm sitting in watch boutiques thumbing through their pile, and I'm the only guy who will see that ad. If you want to actually sell a Breitling, you need ads on the internet, and you need to sell there.
Well, what did I read? And I don't remember the numbers, but the top three marketing channels for watch brands are going to be like print media. It's going to be celebrity endorsements, and then like billboards. Which, if you notice, if you're driving around, notice that every third billboard is for a watch, by the way.
We're in Miami.
But still, I was in Buffalo, New York a few weeks ago, and driving on whatever highway, it wasn't I-95, and I'm seeing billboards for Rolex, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I guess maybe it works to get a lot of eyes. I mean, they're somewhat affordable. I don't know.
Your frostbitten wrist in Buffalo would look so much more comely on with a Rolex on it. It's one of those things. So yeah, billboards and magazines. So the shift is going to be toward digital, and I think with private equity coming in, there are great risks. Private equity is notoriously impatient. They look at cost cutting the way like an obsessive looks at dieting. I'm going to diet myself to beauty. It never works. you have to build muscle, and sometimes investment is necessary.
That's right.
So it's good to see that Theodore Snyder, he's one of the scions of the family that's controlled the company since 1979. He's going to take some of the payout that he got, and he's going to reinvest and own 20%.
That's good.
So at least there's still someone who's a steward of the brand.
Sure.
I feel that there are 5 problems that Breitling has right now, and 2 of them, at least, are beyond its control. Okay, so one of the problems is the market. It's just a bad time to be selling watches.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to go over the 3 that they can control. 1, production. We just found out because of this deal, it was essentially released that Breitling sold 148,000 watches in 2016. That's the kind of peek behind the curtain we never get. There are estimates, there's Vontobel, there are German magazines, but this is the first time we've seen like a no joke, here's what Breitling sold within the last couple of months. A full model year or calendar year's sales. That's impressive. It's also too much. So we know the production needs to be cut back. The other thing, and this is unfortunate, is that their watches are too big. Their watches are too big, and people are just not into that. The era of the watch that's 45 to 50 millimeters was like 2005. And while watches are
Probably
never
ended
gonna,
in 2013 or 14, I'd say.
I would say so. I
It's
would
got
say
long,
it
yeah.
did not long outlive the economic collapse.
No, all you saw with Panerai even, so.
And the other thing, finally, is that it's okay. So they have some nice models, but that has to be the general rule. 33 millimeter men's watches are not coming back.
No.
Sorry, and you know who I'm talking to there. But the bottom line is that 45 to 50, that's also going the way of the dodo. Finally, their ads, Breitling advertising. Okay, I get every once in a while you see like this kind of progressive pop art looking thing, but the bescarfed and goggled flying hero with some damsel in distress, that's got to go. And that picture of John Travolta, I swear he gets thinner and younger every year. This is like Get Shorty era John Travolta, and yet he looks better and better with every successive model year. I expect him to show up dressed as Vinnie Barbarino any day now. Breitling, you've got to move on. The
Benjamin
advertising.
Button over here.
The sweat hogs.
That's right.
Get the crew back together.
Oh, God.
But the bottom line is that Saturday Night Live fever is over. Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta from that era, he's done. Okay. Here's something that Breitling can't help, but they really need. There is no evangelistic cadre of people who love the brand and talk about it. There are people who own Breitlings. They'll be on St. Thomas or something. They'll pick up a big old watch like, this thing's butch. But those aren't the people who go home and tell 5 of their friends who are considering a luxury watch purchase, you guys have got to try Breitling.
Yeah.
There's not like a permanent constituency of enthusiasts and fans who are into modern Breitling. And I think one of the reasons for that is that and again, this comes down to advertising. I hate to say it, but I don't think they're paying any kind of retainers or fees to blogs and news sites to promote them. Notice how even in the vintage obsessed blog culture, there's really very little following of vintage Breitling. I think a lot of that comes down to, and yet you're seeing interest in vintage crap that no one could care less about if it weren't on the front page of a blog.
Yeah.
I feel like Breitling needs to put some money into promoting their best vintage references. The slow chronograph dive watches, the reference 1004 first generation Super Ocean, the 806 Navitime or the 809 Cosmonaut. Put some money into promoting your history, Breitling. And
just like we talked about with Zenith, they want to find their way. They need to have one core model and then build from there, right?
yeah, what's your identity? Figure it out, Breitling.
In my opinion, what it'd be? It's probably the watch that holds the most value on the resale, and a watch that, if you do like Breitling, you tend to like this. It's a Navitimer. It doesn't look like anything else. I mean, the Avengers and the Chronomats, again, they are within themselves, but they're just like big, bulky.
They also feel like clones of each other.
Exactly. Without a doubt, they do. So the Navitimer is, in and of itself, a very separate watch. You can build a really nice brand around that, in my opinion, right? So you can do a lot of different things, dial configurations. It looks really unlike anything else. And again, those are the ones that right now people like. So go with that, build around that, and you can put some marketing together. There's right now in pop culture, watches are becoming very, very important. I mean, you see it even with Patek.
Universally.
Well, so 10 years ago, if you watch a rap video, it's only Rolexes, right? Gold Rolexes. Then 5 to 8 years ago, Audemars kind of permeated that culture, right? So it's the young people, right? Right now, rappers are wearing diamond-covered Patek Philippe's. Like, that's the thing. So
Really?
It is.
Okay.
They call it bust down. You can check it. But legitimately,
This is where it helps
in
to
pop
have him
culture.
here, because I would never pick this up.
well, it is. If pop culture is really going deeper into the watch world, so if I'm Breitling, I want to identify that and do something about it.
So we could sum it up as follows.
for it.
Advertise online, immediately plug yourself into influencers outside traditional
Yeah.
like celebrity ambassador circles. We love John Travolta. It's time for him to retire, or at least give up part of the game to someone who's younger and relevant. Because let's face it, a rapper wears a Breitling, John Travolta wears a Breitling. Honestly, I'm sure they have about equal interest in the brand. Go with the one who has the interest, and then I would say cultivate your history. And this is where obviously that mainstream pop culture. That's what they do to get the mass market to pay attention.
Yeah.
Then reach out to the influencers who are people within the enthusiast community, the
Right.
people who can actually name those old Navitimer references and want to collect them, the people. I get no money from Breitling, and I own no vintage Breitling, so I speak only from my honest opinion here. But really, cultivate the pop culture image with the folks who are actually being seen and relevant to 25 to 55-year-old, buyers, because that's the meat of the market. That's the age group that sets TV advertising rates.
Right.
And then among the enthusiasts, extend them a lifeline, extend them an olive branch. Get people who are evangelists, who are super fans of the brand, who know and love its history, and then give them modern references that appeal to that sensibility. So instead of having your friend who's into watches telling you to consider Tudor and Habring and Nomos, Breitling will be on that list.
Yeah.
That's where they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, just it's bottom up and top down. Seems
Yeah.
like, but listen, it's going to be a new beginning for them. Hopefully, I was thinking about the other day. We'll end the Breitling conversation with this. Is that when I think about Breitling as someone who's in the industry, buys and sells, and who actually also collects, my favorite Breitlings, and I think the best ones they make, are quartz.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're usually lowest price points. They run tough. They're super. I think they look great.
Yeah.
Very wearable. And I really think that if they're going to start focusing on a few of their models, which they should, Navitimers, and then all their quartz models.
Yeah, I would honestly say that is kind of an undersold asset of Breitling. The super quartz professional level models, really no one else is doing that besides
Nobody.
Omega and their X33 family, and that's a smaller
barely
portion of
exists.
Omega than quartz is for Breitling. Quartz chronometers, again, no one else is doing that.
Nobody is, and Breitling's doing it successfully.
So we hope Breitling gets liquidity, cash in hand, and hopefully a new direction
That's a
and
lot
no
of Breitling
dogmas.
talk, man.
You know what, though? It's not every day that a brand like that is sold. Just remember, I don't think we've seen a brand this large sold since Hublot went to LVMH back in 2008, and I think that was about, I want to say the estimate was that they got about 400. Jean-Claude Biver and Carlo Croco walked away with about $400 million US. So that was a company that did about $150 million a year in business back in 2007, and Breitling reportedly did 420 million Swiss francs last year. So figure about like 450 million US dollars. So yeah, I feel like this is a good price. Breitling didn't sell distressed, but they certainly didn't get a premium. Okay, so best article of the week from Revolution Magazine, guys. I always like to give a shout out to an article that I felt summed up something fairly important and relevant to collectors, and it just happened to name drop me. So this is from Revolution Magazine, and it's Watch Case Sizes Lug to Lug by Editor-in-Chief Adi Soon. Now, you guys know from my thousands of wrist review videos that I'm an advocate of measuring a watch from lug to lug, because to me this is the measurement that defines whether or not the thing's going to fit your wrist. Case diameter means so much less when you consider that a 45 millimeter Panerai Radiomir with wire lugs is theoretically like 1.5 millimeters smaller than a 46 millimeter Big Pilot. We know that's not even close to true.
No.
So the lug-to-lug argument, and Adi Soon uses a great HYTH0. Yeah, I threw your watch in there,
That's
Josh.
right. Hey,
He uses
good watch. Buy that.
from him.
Yeah. Or from anywhere.
So anyway, so Adi Soon says basically, I'm going to use the HYTH0, which is a 49 millimeter watch. to explain why case diameter is just irrelevant. And so it's a lugless watch. And he does a great example comparing the H0 to the H1, which has lugs. And you can see there's no comparison. The lug to lug is what defines how the watch fits, and to a lesser extent, the shape of the lugs. So he did a great job making the case that this should be an industry standard measurement, just so people who are buying, like we talk about online sales, pre-owned is already doing it. Primary is going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how the watch fits, how on earth can you buy remotely?
Oh, you can't. And I want to add one thing to this, is that, so I'm very vocal about watches that don't fit and watches that do fit. 42 millimeter on the wrist, easily wearable. A 44 millimeter Luminor, hard for me to wear.
Yes.
45 millimeter Radiomir, easy as heck to wear. In fact, today, I had a customer buy a 47 millimeter Radiomir, which I put on my wrist, and I easily could pull that off. 47 millimeters. No lugs, right? Thin case. I tried on, there was a Parallel, a 50 millimeter Parallel. Put it on my wrist, fit like a dream. So it has lugs, but the way that the lugs camper down here on like down to the side, if you look that watch up, it was a turbine. It was some Parallel turbine. You guys know I have a Parallel. I was thinking about maybe purchasing another one. So we had one in, tried it on, and when they told me it was a 50 millimeter, I just couldn't believe it. I had to double check, and I did. Fit like a dream. So lug to lug is absolutely the most important measurement.
Yeah.
And millimeter size is almost irrelevant, really. Because look.
Oh yeah, right. We've got a millinery here. It's 47 millimeters across the case. How big is it lug to lug? Let me show you this watch. This watch, lug to lug, is about the size of a 36 millimeter Rolex Datejust on a bracelet, lug to lug. But 47 millimeters across the wrist. There's no way you can compare that to a conventional round watch. But that's where lug to lug becomes super important. And again, we've always been an internet retailer here at Watch You Want, so we always had a return policy. Basically, a watch goes out on approval, because no matter how good our photos are, we can never really explain how the shape and size of a watch is going to interact with the shape and size of your wrist. So,
I mean,
yeah, there's
47 millimeter fits smaller than my 42 millimeter Breitling.
The lug to lug defines, and the shape of the lug defines how that millinery fits.
See that or not.
And that's just a great example because it's such a wacky watch shape. The egg-shaped oval watch is something that seems to come up like once in every generation. Like every generation has had its oval-shaped watch. So you fans of the Omega Dynamic, this is ours. Okay, so Josh, basically, I agree with what you see on Revolution. Check out the article. Addy's a great writer. I also noticed the Longa 1 that's personally owned by himself in the article for comparison. This is a great article to read. The photos are great, and you get better imagery of the HYT H0 than I gave you when I announced the watch in my news feature last week. Okay, so Josh, Sasby from Belgrade asks, Belgrade, Serbia, I would greatly appreciate your opinion on my dilemma.
Okay.
I'm saving money for my Omega Speedmaster Professional Dream Watch. I'm going to throw this in $5,250 US as part of a premium collection for the next 5 years, but after trying a couple more watches, I'm not sure I should acquire it or go for it. And this is like last week's this or that. 2 watches he has in mind. The Oris Aquis, 43 millimeters, $1,850 US.
Okay.
And
right.
He's talking about the Nomos Glasuta Orion 38 in stainless steel for about $2,560. And because we like to look at movements, and Nomos has its own in-house alpha in there, we're going to go with the $2,560 sapphire caseback version of this watch.
Sure.
So 2 watches, one a sports watch, one a dress watch, for about $4,400 US rather than $5,200 for the Omega. All else equal, let's not talk about pre-owned or discounts.
Sure.
If you had to make that call, buying everything new, what would you go with?
So it's tough. I know what I said last week.
Yeah.
And that was specific to going against the no-date sub.
But it was also 4 watches versus 1.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it depends on how you're going to wear them. Right now, I'm leaning towards going for the Speedy. I know it's a watch that I want to add to my collection. I was actually talking to a friend of mine today who may be selling me his. It's a great all-around watch. You can put on a strap. You can put it on a bracelet, and I think that may be the difference. The fact that the as compared to the no-date sub, the no-date sub on a strap, in my opinion, doesn't work.
Okay.
Rolex has to be on a bracelet. even the Oyster Flex rubber straps just don't work, in my opinion.
Okay.
So in that regard,
this scenario.
in this scenario, the Speedmaster, I would go for the Speedmaster because you can wear it on a strap easily, and it'll work.
And I priced it on a bracelet.
Right, exactly. So now you add a strap and a buckle to that, and you're really going to get an extra watch out of the whole scenario. So that's what I would go for.
Okay, so you're gonna go with getting the 2 watches over the 1 Omega.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
No, I'm saying sorry.
Okay.
I'm going for the Omega Speedmaster, buy an extra leather strap and a buckle, and stick with the Omega over the Aquas and the Nomos, even though I do own an Aquas. Not a huge fan of Nomos. There, it just doesn't really sing to me. So if that's your 2 options, unless you really like the Nomos, then I'd say go for the Nomos.
Okay, so we're gonna go with the classic here. Gorgeous watch, the Speedmaster Professional. Keep in mind, all else is not equal. You can buy these pre-owned for, I would say, 55 to 60% of that $52.50 US price. There are a lot of these out there, and if you buy one on a strap, it's going to be even less.
Oh yeah.
Keep in mind, the Speedmaster automatics, the reduced from the 90s, those are great watches too. And along those lines, Michele C. asks, I'm looking to add a new watch. This is a really tough question.
Yeah.
Because he's given us a really tight price bracket. We've got to stay below $3,000 US, but Michele asks, I'm looking to add a new watch to my collection, and I have in mind the type of watch, but not a brand or model in my price range. $3,000 US. Pre-owned is okay. I want a mechanical chronograph with a rotating style dive bezel, but not a diver with a chronograph. He doesn't want a big chunky Seamaster chrono. He would like something like a pilot's watch with a rotating bezel, and he'd like to be able to use it every day, so his bare minimum is 5 ATM water resistance, but he'd prefer 10. And he would also like a column wheel and a vertical clutch, so a refined movement, not just a chrono. Okay, this is very difficult. He has a
lot of parameters here.
He has a real 1970 Zenith Corelli retailed CP2 Chronometro, which is a spectacular start for a collection. And also, I think, perhaps, the start of a collection theme. But Josh, first, you tell me what you think he should pick up for $3,000 or less that is a chronograph, pilot's themed, but not a dive chronograph.
So when I saw this question, I immediately thought of one brand, but then realized it wouldn't work. So I immediately thought of Tag Heuer, thinking of a chronograph, an everyday wear chronograph. And really, I was looking for something with a rotating bezel that was a chronograph. I really couldn't find it. So we moved on. And I went to another brand. Well, I went to a few other brands and landed on a Breitling. The Breitling Chronomat 40 millimeter, the Blackbird edition.
Okay, the first one.
The first one, exactly. That's you get the rotating bezel. You're not going to have such a huge, chunky, thick watch. It's going to be something wearable. It's going to be a sporty watch. It seems like it gives you everything you want. You can definitely get it for $3,000 or less.
Okay. So now there are 2 Chronomat. There's the original Chronomat, and I think it's like something like A13350. That's the watch you're talking about. 39 millimeters, but there's also a bigger, more recent Chronomat with a double-digit date. These are unidirectional bezels, Michele. You can use them for diving. They're at least 100 meters water resistant. And I think the nice thing about them is that they are pilot-themed watches that can dive rather than divers with a chrono.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense, though. I mean, let's all agree we're not going to use our chronographs underwater, right?
Yeah, right. Start it before you dive and screw that crown down. So Josh is suggesting 2 great Breitling Blackbird options from the Chronomat family, and you're going to get everything you want with these, Michele, except the column wheel vertical clutch chronograph architecture. Frankly, below $3,000, you're going to have to go deep into pre-owned in order to get anything remotely like that. So my suggestion, definitely consider Josh's because they're more recent watches and probably more serviceable at local watchmakers. But if you're willing to dig, the Zenith Rainbow from about 1992 to 1996, El Primero, so you don't get the vertical clutch, but you do get a great power reserve of about 52 hours, the high beat movement, and all-time great. You get the column wheel actuation for that crisp actuation, start, stop, and reset. Awesome piece. Sub 3,000, you can find them. There are 2 versions with the rotating bezel and the screw-down crowns. That one is 100 meters water resistant. The one with the metal bezel and the non-screw-downs, That's more of a land sports watch. That's 5 ATM water resistant. But look around, you will be able to find this watch. The reference for the watch is 020370.400.
Those old rainbows are really cool, man.
They are, and they're not common. I'm talking like a few thousand, not like 10,000, but like 4 digits production over, 5 or 6 model years. This is old school Zenith. Very low production in a period when the Rolex Daytona was sucking up most of the El Primero movements.
Right. Yeah, we get them offered probably once every few months or so. I just realized something here.
Sure. Go for it.
That's a chronograph.
That's a chronograph, but I think
I know what he's talking about. But still, there you go. Trick answer. We got a chronograph. Rotating bezel.
Yeah, the only column and wheel you're going to see is if you're driving your car with that thing on your wrist.
That's right, exactly.
So not a column wheel chrono. But I will say this. Consider if you want a vertical, I can't get you a column wheel and a vertical clutch in the same $3,000 package. At least not without recommending you buy some ancient Pierce. Like, if you want to go out and find an old Pierce, trust me, this isn't even going to be humidity resistant, but you will get a vertical clutch and a column wheel for under $3,000. You'll also get a headache for your watchmaker.
And if you can raise your budget to about 4 to 45, the world opens up to you. There's so many references.
A lot more out there at that price. Let me say one last thing. Consider the Speedmaster Reduced, the automatic from the 90s, because that is a vertical clutch. If you like to be able to run your chrono continuously, that's a vertical clutch. It's not a column wheel, but it's a chronograph. It fits your budget, and it's a vertical clutch in that price range.
Is it water resistant?
Yeah, but not probably not to the extent you want. 5 ATM water resistance. Send that one in for a proper service before you take it swimming.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope your weekend is wonderful. I hope you guys stay well, on time, and flush with good times. I'm Tim. He's Josh. He's Federico. She's Faylene. They did a fantastic job. Thanks for joining us. This is Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on.